A while back, I made a video talking about the top 20 couch co-op roguelite games. And since then, there's been a handful of new games that I wanted to talk about. And there were a couple of old games that I missed too. So let's talk about 10 more couch co-op roguelite games. In my last video, I talked about Risk of Rain. Of course, we got Risk of Rain 2, but we also got the remake called Risk of Rain Returns. And it's more than just a remaster. It's a full reimagining of the original 2013 roguelike. It has some updated visuals, enhanced mechanics, and some new content. Right off the bat, Risk of Rain Returns looks and feels like a significant upgrade. The pixel art has been refined, animations are smoother, and the color palette is more vibrant. Yet the game retains its signature gritty atmospheric aesthetic. And the updated UI is cleaner and more intuitive, making navigation easier without sacrificing the original's charm. The core gameplay loop remains intact. You choose a survivor, land on a mysterious planet, and fight for survival. Co-op is where Risk of Rain always shined, and this version makes it even easier to team up with friends either locally or online. Honestly, if you liked the original Risk of Rain, this is more of that, but even better. You really can't go wrong with either version, but I do think that Risk of Rain Returns is even better than the original. It's truly a masterful remake. One of the older games that I didn't talk about in my last video is Crypt of the Necrodancer. This is one of those rare indie gems that takes two seemingly unrelated genres, rhythm-based gameplay and roguelite dungeon crawling, and it fuses them into something completely unique. This is a game that I just kind of suck at, but if you can get the hang of it, it's really fun. You basically have to move with the beat. Attacking and dodging is all tied to the beat of the soundtrack. If you stay on beat, you're rewarded with smooth movement and attack bonuses. If you miss a beat, enemies can quickly overwhelm you. I was never really good at this, but I understand why a lot of people love this game. Ultimately, the game is really tough, but it's always fair. If you screw up, it's your own fault. There is a co-op mode, and this really requires a lot of synchronization with your partner. If you're looking for a roguelite that's definitely different from the other ones, Crypt of the Necrodancer is probably the game you want to try out. Ammo and Oxygen finally came out of early access. This is a roguelike twin-stick shooter, and it can be played with up to 4 players in local co-op. Visually, this game looks really great. It has a very dark setting. I was able to play this game with 2 friends, and we found it to be very difficult, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it. Not only do you have to focus on fighting enemies, you're gonna really need to pay attention to your oxygen levels as well, because once it goes down, you quickly die. Luckily, if one of your teammates does die, you're able to be revived by one of the other players. One feature that I really thought was cool is that you could pick up cassette tapes, and then it starts playing some really cool synthwave music. Up until that point, you mostly just hear atmospheric sounds, and that is really cool for setting the mood as well. But the soundtrack is really cool too. This game is incredibly difficult, but if you can get 3 friends together, it's definitely worth trying. Is TMNT Splintered Fate. This one originally came out on iOS, but it was ported to the Nintendo Switch as well as Steam this year. And these versions of the game is where they added local co-op gameplay for the first time. Unlike a lot of the TMNT games that are typically beat-em-ups, this one is a dungeon crawler roguelite type of game, and you can play it with up to 4 players. Even though the visuals here and some of the gameplay, it kind of makes it look like a budget title, it was meant to be played on a phone originally, so that assumption isn't completely wrong. But that doesn't mean it's not worth trying out. There's a lot of substance here. Each character has their own unique abilities, and you're able to power them up. So like most roguelite games, each room is procedurally generated, and so are the items that you pick up. After you clear a room, you're able to choose your upgrade, and all stats and upgrades only last during that run. So if you die, you lose everything. So this is a game that's definitely going to take some patience. At the end of each major area, you're going to end it with a boss fight. So you're going to see a lot of familiar faces. Bebop and Rocksteady, Leatherhead, and of course Shredder. But this is a game that's going to require you to play through it multiple times. And it's really difficult, but it's definitely better when you can play it with friends. I recommend you play both of these games. How about we talk about Cult of the Lamb? So basically, this is a hack and slash roguelite. The levels are procedurally generated, as are the weapons. But then those areas are broken up by base building gameplay, and each part kind of contributes to the other. When you're in the dungeons fighting, you're able to grab more resources and recruit new cult members. And then when you're back at the camp and you're doing your base building, you're able to upgrade your stats by participating in cult activities, I guess. In the dungeon crawling parts, you're going to go through various stages where you're going to fight a number of mini bosses. Once you fight 3 mini bosses, then you will fight the main boss, and there are 4 total. And then when you go back to your base, there's some crafting, there's cooking, you're basically taking care of your cult. Anyway, it's all very interesting and unique. I love this game, and I think it works really well as a co-op game, so I'm really glad that they added that to the game. AK-xolotl Together, or AK-xolotl, I don't know how you're supposed to say it, is another game that was originally a single player experience, but they added co-op gameplay. This one's a top-down twin stick shooter. Like a lot of games on this list, the levels are procedurally generated, so every run is different, and your upgrades will be random as well. This is another one that plays a lot like Enter the Gungeon. I really enjoyed this game, but it can get a bit repetitive after a long session, especially if you're not unlocking new weapons or upgrades frequently. I do really like the pixel art, and the characters are unique. Ants Took My Eyeball is one of the more unique games on this list. It's essentially a 2D platformer with a lot of exploration. It has procedurally generated levels as well as upgrades. But the thing that makes it stand out are its visuals. It has these cutscenes with a really nice hand-drawn art style, and the pixel art during gameplay looks nice as well. It always has a slightly grotesque look. I found this one to be really difficult, and I definitely need to go back and play it some more. The combat is fluid and satisfying, and there's a good mixture of melee and long-ranged attacks as well. And the platforming feels really good too. I think this one is definitely an underrated game that's worth trying out. Asterogues. This is another roguelite, but this one is from a top-down perspective with some twin-stick controls. Another one that I really liked. This one kind of feels like Enter the Gungeon or Neurovoider or something like that. I definitely need to play this game some more. Vampire Survivors is kind of an interesting game. First, it came out as a single player game, but in 2023, they added the ability to play it in 4-player couch co-op. This game essentially plays like a roguelite dungeon crawler with some bullet hell action thrown in as well. When you first see this game, it looks very low budget, and it probably is, but it quickly becomes addicting. This is how you play it. You just run around and avoid all of the enemies. You don't push any buttons. You grab upgrades and improve your stats, and you just start attacking automatically. So whatever you get, you don't really have to think about it. You just attach it, and then it does its work for you. All you really have to do is dodge the enemies. And honestly, this might not sound that fun, but when you pick it up and play it, especially with friends, it quickly becomes very addicting. Double Dragon Gaiden, Rise of the Dragons, melds roguelite elements with tag team combat, reminiscent of Marvel vs. Capcom, in a side-scrolling beat-em-up. The simple execution of combat and diverse character choices is what makes the game stand out. The tag system allows for meaningful combinations, but the addition of roguelite elements is its greatest weakness, in my opinion. The mission structure allows you to choose which boss you want to fight next. Visually, the game is a departure from every other Double Dragon game that we have seen yet. But that isn't a bad thing. The pixel art is colorful and highly detailed. As a lifelong Double Dragon fan, I wasn't sure how I would feel about this new direction, but once I played it, it just felt right. And in my opinion, this is the best Double Dragon game to come out since Double Dragon Advance. So there you go. There are 10 more couch co-op roguelite games. If you enjoyed this video, check out our video that we did last time where we talked about the top 20 couch co-op roguelite games. And thanks for watching.